Hans Christian Andersen. Classic Fairy Tales. The Flying Trunk. There was once a merchant who was so rich that he could pave the whole street, and almost a little lane too, with silver. But he did not do so. He knew how to employ his money differently. If he spent a shilling, he got back 4. Such a clever merchant was he, till he died. His son now got all this money. He lived merrily, went masquerading every night, made kites out of dollar notes, and played at ducks and drakes on the seashore with gold pieces instead of stones. In this manner, the money could easily come to an end, and it did so. At last, he possessed no more than 4 shillings, and had no other clothes than a pair of slippers and an old dressing gown. His friends now no longer troubled themselves about him, as they could not, of course, walk along the streets with him. But one of them, who was good-natured, sent him an old trunk with the remark, "Pack up." That was indeed very nice of him, but he had nothing to pack up, so he sat down in the trunk himself. It was a wonderful trunk. As soon as you pressed the lock, the trunk could fly. He pressed, and away it flew with him through the chimney, high up above the clouds, farther and farther away. But as often as the bottom creaked a little, he was in great terror lest the trunk might go to pieces. In that case, he would have turned a mighty somersault. Heaven preserve us! In this manner he arrived in the country of the Turks. He hid the trunk in the wood under the dry leaves, and then went into the town. He could do so very well, for among the Turks everybody went about like that, in a dressing gown and slippers. Meeting a nurse with a little child, he said, "I say, you Turkish nurse, what grand castle is that close by the town, in which the windows are so wide open?" "The Sultan's daughter lives there," she replied. "It was prophesied that she would be very unhappy about a lover, and therefore no one may go to her, unless the Sultan and Sultana are there too." "Thank you," said the merchant's son, and going out into the wood, sat down in his trunk, flew up on the roof, and crept through the window into the princess's apartment. She was lying on the sofa asleep, and was so beautiful that the merchant's son could not help kissing her. At this she awoke, and was greatly terrified, but he said he was a Turkish god who had come down to her from the sky, and that pleased her. They sat down next to one another, and he told her little stories about her eyes, that they were the most glorious dark lakes, in which thoughts were swimming about like mermaids. And he told her of her forehead, and that it was a mountain of snow with the most splendid halls and images. They were indeed fine stories. Then he asked the princess for her hand, and she said yes at once. "But you must come here on Saturday," she said. "The Sultan and the Sultana will be here to tea then. They will be very proud at my marrying a Turkish god. But mind you bring a very pretty little tale with you, for my parents like them immensely. Mother likes them moral and high-flown, but father likes merry ones, at which he can laugh. Yes, I shall bring no other marriage gift than a story," said he. And so they parted. But the princess gave him a sword ornamented with gold pieces, and the latter were very useful to him. So he flew away, bought himself a new dressing gown, and sitting down in the wood made up a story. It was to be ready by Saturday, and that was no easy task. By the time he had got it ready, Saturday had come. The Sultan, the Sultana, and the whole court were at the princess's to tea. He was received very graciously. "Will you tell us a tale?" said the Sultana. "One that is deep and instructive." "But something to laugh at, too," said the Sultan. "Certainly," he replied, and commenced. And now pay attention. Once upon a time, there was a box of matches which were very proud of their high descent. Their genealogical tree, that is to say, the great fir tree, of which each of them was a little splinter, had been a high old tree in the forest. The matches were now lying between a tinder-box and an old iron pot, and they were telling about their youth. "Yes," said they, "when we were upon the green branches, then we were really upon the green branches. Every morning and evening there was a diamond tea. That was the dew. We had sunshine the whole day long, and when the sun shined the little birds had to tell stories. We could very well see that we were rich too, for the other trees were only dressed in summer, while our family had means for green dresses both in summer and winter. But one day the woodman came. That was the great revolution, and our family was split up. The head of the family received a post as a mainmast on a splendid vessel which could sail around the world, if it wished. The other branches settled in different places, and we now hold the office of kindling a light for the common herd. That is how such grand people as we have come down to the kitchen." "My fate shaped itself in another way," said the iron pot, next to which the matches were lying. "From the first time I first came into the world, much scrubbing and cooking has gone on inside me. I look after the material wants of life, and occupy the first place in the house. My only pleasure is to be on the shelf after dinner, very nice and clean, and to carry on a sensible conversation with my comrades. But with the exception of the pail, which now and then gets taken down into the yard, we always live within our four walls. The only one who brings us any news is the market basket, but it speaks very unassuringly about the government and the people. Indeed, only the other day an old pot fell down from fright and broke into pieces. It is a liberal, I tell you." "Now you're talking too much," interrupted the tinderbox, and the steel struck against the flint so that it gave out sparks. "Had we not better have a pleasant evening?" "Yes, let us talk about who is the grandest," said the matches. "No, I don't like to talk about myself," objected the pot. "Let us get up an evening's entertainment. I will begin by telling a story of everyday life, something that anyone can take an interest in and derive pleasure from too. On the Baltic, by the Danish coast." "That's a pretty beginning," said all the plates. "That will be a story which we shall like." "Yes, I pressed my youth there in a quiet family. The furniture was polished, the floor was scrubbed, and every fortnight clean curtains were hung up." "How interesting you make your story," said the broom. "One can hear at once that the teller is a man who has moved much among women. Something so pure runs through it all." "Yes, that is so," said the pail, and jumped for joy, so that the water splashed all over the floor. And the pot continued telling its story, the end of which was just as good as the beginning. All the plates rattled for joy, and the broom got some green parsley out of the dust hole and made a wreath for the pot, for it knew that this would make the others angry. "If I present him with a wreath today," it thought, "he will have to give me one tomorrow." "Now I will dance," said the tongs, and did so. Heavens, how high he could lift up one leg! The old chair cushion in the corner burst when he saw it. "Shall I get a wreath too?" asked the tongs, and she got one. Still, they're only common people, thought the matches. Now the tea-urn was asked to sing, but she said she had caught cold and could not sing unless she were boiling. That was mere affectation, however. She would not sing unless she were standing on the table with the family. By the window was stuck an old goose-quill, with which the maid wrote. There was nothing remarkable about it, except that it had been dipped far too deep into the ink, but it was proud of that. "If the tea-urn won't sing," it said, "let her alone. Outside there is a nightingale in a cage which can sing. It is true that it has learned nothing, but we'll leave that out of the question this evening." "I don't think it all right," said the tea-kettle. "He was kitchen singer and half-brother to the tea-urn. That such a foreign bird should be heard, is that patriotic? Let the market-basket decide." "I should only be angry," said the market-basket. "There is such a conflict going on within me as no one would believe. Is this a proper way in which to pass an evening? Would it not be more sensible to put the house in order? Everyone ought to go to his own place, and I would lead the game. That would be quite another thing. Yes, let us make a noise, they all said. Then the door opened, and the servant came in, at which they all stood still. Not one stirred. But there was not a single pot who did not know what he could do and how grand he was. Yes, if I had liked it, each one thought, we might have had a right merry evening. The maid took the matches and lit the fire with them. Heavens, what sparks they threw out, and how they burst into flame! Now everybody can see that we are first, they thought. How we shine, and with what light! And they were burned up. That was a fine story, said the Sultana. I feel quite transplanted to the kitchen among the matches. Yes, now you shall have our daughter. Indeed you shall, said the Sultan. You shall marry our daughter on Monday. And they made him feel quite one of the family. The wedding was settled, and on the evening before it the whole city was illuminated. Biscuits and cakes were thrown among the people. The street boys stood upon their toes, shouting, "Hurrah!" and whistling on their fingers. It was uncommonly grand. Well, I suppose I shall have to treat them to something too, thought the merchant's son. So he bought some rockets and crackers and every kind of fireworks that you can think of, put them in his trunk, and flew up to the sky with them. Bang, bang! How they went off and cracked. All the Turks jumped so high that their slippers flew over their ears. Such a display they had never yet seen. Now they could understand that it was the god of the Turks himself who was to marry the princess. As soon as the merchant's son had come down again into the wood with his trunk, he thought, I'll just go into town and hear what impression it made. And it was natural that he should wish to know that. What stories the people did tell! Every one whom he asked about it had seen it in his own way, but all thought it beautiful. I saw the god of the Turks himself, said one. His eyes were like shining stars, and his beard like foaming water. He flew in a mantle of fire, said another. The sweetest little cherubs peeped out of its folds. Indeed, they were fine things that he heard, and on the following day he was to be married. So he went back to the wood to get into his trunk. But what had become of it? The trunk was burnt. A spark from the fireworks had fallen into it and had set it alight, and now the trunk lay in ashes. He could not fly any more, nor get to his bride. She stood on the roof the whole day and waited, and is probably waiting still. But he wanders through the world telling tales, which are, however, no longer such merry ones as the one he told about the matches. The end.